How's the drama around the draft there, Mike?
Oh, this is a time where you never know what to believe and what not to believe, who's lying, who's not lying, who's putting out a smoke screen. It's such a competitive process because it's chess, checkers, and chicken, and everybody wants the guy they want, and they'll say whatever they have to do to try to get the guy they want.
All right. We know who's going 1 and 2, or do we?
Oh, we do. I mean, look, anything can happen theoretically that would maybe render one of the top 2 quarterbacks unavailable to play football. I don't want to jinx anybody, but at least the 4th of July isn't coming up or anything like that. But we know 1 and 2.
Okay, so we know it's Goff and we know it's Wentz, correct?
Yes.
Okay, is there more drama at 3 with San Diego or 4 with Dallas?
That's a good question, and that's my way of buying time because I don't really know the answer. I'd say there's different drama with both of them. With the Chargers, they're essentially in position where they have the first pick in the draft because they're not going to take Goff or Wentz, although they took Rivers when they had Drew Brees under contract. But they're not expected and weren't expected to take one of those guys, so they can go Laramie Tunsil, the left tackle. They can go a defensive player, maybe Jalen Ramsey or DeForest Buckner. But with the Cowboys, that's when it gets very intriguing because if they put Ezekiel Elliott's name on a card at number 4, you take a running back at number 4, you better be sure this guy is going to be Jim Brown or Barry Sanders or Adrian Peterson or Emmitt Smith or anybody who would be the exact opposite of Trent Richardson, the guy who was taken at number 3 back in 2012, because you can get running backs anywhere and everywhere. So you better be convinced that this guy's going to be an all-time great if you put his name down. And I'd love to be in the draft room for the discussion between Stephen Jones and Jerry Jones about what they're going to do, because Jerry Jones wants a win now. He wants a guy who makes the biggest impact now, and I think Stephen Jones is more inclined to think longer term, who's going to help us 3, 4, 5 years out.
Yeah, I find the Cowboys more intriguing than San Diego. I mean, we have a basic idea of where San Diego is going to go, maybe 4 guys that you include. But if you take Elliott at 4, Dallas changes the rest of the draft, in some ways. The Bears love him. The Dolphins love him. Maybe the Giants would take Ezekiel Elliott. So I think there are a lot of teams saying, if they take Bosa, what's that mean for the rest of the first round? So I find the Cowboys far more intriguing than San Diego.
Well, but the Chargers are in a position where they could still trade that pick. Now,
True.
Recently, Tom Telesco, the GM, said that the calls have diminished, but if there's somebody who decides in the next 36 hours that there's a guy they must have at essentially the top of the draft once you take out Goff and Wentz, the Chargers could, in theory, move down.
Talking to Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk on the NBC Sports Network. We've been talking about the Raiders and Las Vegas. Now, we know that Mark Davis has kicked the tires on San Antonio and Los Angeles, and now it's Vegas. But Vegas somehow feels real. Is it a mirage, and no pun intended?
Well, I look, if it's going to be great leverage to get Oakland to finally do something, then it has to feel real. And it was just a few years ago, Dan, that the possibility of Las Vegas hosting an NFL preseason game came up, and the NFL shut it down immediately.
Yeah.
Not a consideration. Won't be playing games in Las Vegas. And now all of a sudden, Las Vegas is acceptable. Now, there will be owners, and I was told this back at the league meetings in March, there will be owners who are steadfastly opposed to ever playing a game in Vegas, having a team in Vegas, etc. But if 24 total say it's fine by us, they can put a team anywhere they want. They can do anything they want. They already play games in London multiple times a year. There's betting parlors everywhere in London. Their attitude is, hey, when in Rome, we do what the local custom is. Okay, fine. So you go to Vegas, and there's gambling, but you've got procedures in place to ensure it doesn't affect the integrity of the games, and you get a stadium. Look, they're talking about paying for the stadium 66 cents on the dollar via taxes imposed on tourists at a time when taxpayer dollars are not available for the most part to build these stadiums. At some point, you got to go. You go where the free money is, and there's going to be free money in Vegas.
Because once you get the NFL there, the other sports will follow suit. I think, once the NFL is your battering ram, you're going to have hockey there, but this is different. If the NFL goes, baseball, somebody else is going to use that dome stadium. You're not going to have it for just 8 games. So, UNLV can use it, but I get the feeling if you're building an all-purpose dome, you're trying to attract a Final Four, a variety of things. The Super Bowl there. So, I don't know. It just feels like there's a little more there because you follow the money, and there's certainly money there.
Well, and when the money isn't there elsewhere, the taxpayer money isn't there elsewhere, the shift has to happen. And, there's just been this quiet sense that the NFL is starting to accept the idea that gambling is part of the reality of the NFL. It's part of the reason why so many people watch it. And I think they're trying to find a way to have it both ways, where they can stay above the fray, they can claim that the integrity of the games aren't being undermined in any way, but they can at least rub elbows, especially if it's going to result in stadiums being largely paid for by someone other than the NFL or its teams.
We've been talking about Sam Bradford and the Eagles, and I get the feeling that after the draft is when Sam Bradford, if he's going to get traded, would get traded. Teams are going to find out where they stand with their quarterbacking situation after the draft. But your thoughts on how this plays out in Philadelphia?
Well, I don't know why Sam Bradford is surprised that he's not the guy in Philadelphia. His contract screams out that he's not the guy. It's a 2-year contract. And there's only one way to become the guy for any team. You play well, you earn the spot, and you continue to play well, and you keep the spot. Any franchise quarterback out there, the minute they're not playing like a franchise quarterback, they're not going to be the franchise quarterback any longer. So you got to earn it, and you got to keep it. And if he wants a divorce, my suggestion is, how about an annulment? Cough up the $11 million that the Eagles gave you as the starting point, and he's only gotten half of that money. Pay back the 5.5, and let's work out a trade. Because I think that $11 million ends up being an impediment to working out a trade. Are the Eagles just going to eat it?
Yeah.
Is another team going to pay the Eagles the $11 million? There's no one else out there that views Sam Bradford the way he wants to be viewed by the Eagles. So until Bradford recognizes the reality of the situation, I don't see how this gets resolved.
But it's a 2-year deal, which should tell you, if you're at that age, you want to try to cash in one more time and get a 5 or 6 year deal. I'm assuming, unless he thought, I'll play really well, I've got more leverage to either get a long-term contract at age, 30, or, I can go someplace else. But doesn't the 2-year deal kind of scream, you're not our future?
Yeah. I mean, the best approach for Sam Bradford is just go play well. Go play well. Did Drew Brees complain when the Chargers drafted Phillip Rivers, or did he go play well? And he ends up landing a contract with a wrecked shoulder for $60 million, which was a huge contract at the time in New Orleans. Does Tom Brady whine when the Patriots use a second-round pick on his potential replacement, or does he just redouble his efforts to make it impossible for the Patriots to ever take him off the field? You play well, you keep playing well, and you take anything that the team does that would be perceived as a threat against your job as motivation to do your job even better. That's what Bradford should be doing, and I think the way he's handling it makes him less attractive to another team out there that would be inclined to consider giving him a chance, because if he's complaining like that in Philly, it's just a matter of time before he's complaining about something in his new city.
Cardale Jones, is he moving up? I'm like you. I can't trust anybody that anything that I read, but it feels like Cardale Jones, the Ohio State quarterback, there's a little more inertia here. I don't know. Help me out.
All it takes is one team to like a guy earlier than anyone else likes him, and to see something there. I mean, the guy was great in the national championship game. He was great in the win over Alabama, and something happened last year that caused him to fall out of favor. And Urban Meyer didn't do the guy any favors recently when he made some fairly passive-aggressive remarks about Cardale Jones' work ethic and his intelligence and his willingness to apply himself and avoid distractions. And it's not exactly the kind of thing you want to hear from the guy's college coach 2 weeks before the draft, but I think somebody's going to see something. And it's going to be the commodity of quarterback is so important in the NFL that if you can get a guy who can come in and be a difference maker, you roll the dice, and the lower you get in the draft, the easier it is to justify rolling the dice.
Thanks, Bud. I know you're busy. Thanks for joining us.
See you, Dan.
All right. That's Mike Florio.
The Dan Patrick Show, weekday mornings on Audience.